Hello, welcome back to another video. It's Lydia here. So today we're going to be talking about Skies of Arcadia on the Sega Dreamcast. Now, I played this game for about 70 plus hours and I finished it a few weeks ago, and spoiler alert, I absolutely loved it. But I really wanted to talk about this game, talk about a few things like the gameplay and the graphics and just in general how it holds up today and if it's worth the rather large price tag that it comes with now, because it is unfortunately one of the most expensive games that you can get on the Dreamcast. So is it worth it? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So first off, let's talk about how the game actually looks. So the graphics. So how it looks, I think it looks really good for its age. Now, just before I played Skies of Arcadia, I'd been playing Grandia 2, which released in the same year, pretty much just a couple of months apart. And compared to that game, this game blew that game out of the water. Like, Skies of Arcadia just looks so much better, especially for a game that was brought out at the same time. The character designs are all really fun. They're all really unique and individual. I love the fact that they've got animated facial expressions. So although this can look a bit clunky, they don't actually animate between the expressions. They just kind of change from one expression to the other. But what you do have is really fun, interesting facial expressions that are very exaggerated, very anime kind of style. And I really appreciated the art style of this game. I just thought it was really super fun. Loads and loads of colours, and in general, it's just a really, really colourful, nice looking game. The worlds that you travel to are all pretty unique. You have worlds that are very much sand dunes, you have ones that are icy, you have ones that are forests. So you have quite a lot of variety in each different world, and each different world has quite a lot of detail. There's loads of different NPCs walking around that you can interact with, and just in general, the worlds are quite well detailed, and they all have different music themes as well, which also adds to the different effects of each different world. And in general, it was just a really nice looking game for its age. Like I said, does it look amazing if you compare it to modern games? Of course not. But I think for its time period, it definitely was a really, really good looking game. And like I said, stylistically, it works really, really well. Next up is the gameplay. Now, this arguably is probably one of the most important elements of any game, and for me the gameplay holds up really, really well, and I thought it was really engaging throughout the game. Now, this is an RPG game, so it has a lot of things that are kind of what I would call typical RPG things that you would expect. The turn-based combat was nicely paced. I thought it was pretty quick, and it also made me feel like I wasn't waiting around between turns. It made you think. There was a bit of strategy between it, but without making it feel unfair. And I felt like the gameplay was really easy to pick up without even having to read any manuals or anything. Of course, you get to upgrade your weapons. You can buy new ones, such as new armor, new weapons, but you can also upgrade your powers, so you get your special moves. Each character has a selection. Of course, you can purchase new ones throughout the game, and these get more powerful as you progress. All of your characters do have different categories, so you have those that are better at healing, those that are better at defending, and those that are better at attacking, which of course is a very standard RPG game mechanic, but it all felt like it made sense for the characters and their particular personalities. And yeah, I just thought it was just a really well-made RPG. The battles also felt pretty fair. I never at any point really felt like, oh my god, I'm never going to get through this boss, or I'd never had a point where I felt so frustrated that I wanted to give up on the game, which for me is a big part of old RPGs. Sometimes they can feel really unfair, or it's easy to get stuck if you've not upgraded your character properly. Whereas I didn't really have that problem with Skies of Arcadia. I felt like all of the bosses felt pretty fair. There were certain tactics that you needed to use, but they could become pretty obvious as you played through the boss multiple times. And yeah, in general, it just felt fair, and I didn't feel like there was any point that was really super frustrating and made me want to give up, which I feel like is a good thing with RPGs. Now, another big mechanic of this game is exploration. So one of the really big things about this game is the map is pretty huge. So you get to float around on your ship around to different islands. As I mentioned earlier, each different island or area will have different themes. So you'll have ones that are more beachy, ones that are more foresty, etc. And I just thought the world looked really, really cool. There's lots of little things that you can collect, lots of collectible items. As you sail through, you can come across different ships that you can fight, different landmarks to discover that go towards your collectible side of it. And also an element that I really appreciated with the exploration was that you didn't really have any wayfinding in the game. You had your map and you had your compass, and basically you had to discover new islands via this way. So you get a hint that's saying, oh, it's north of this island or it's south of this landmark, and then you'd have to figure it out yourself via the map and the compass. And I really liked that because it really forced you to think about your surroundings and really pay attention to the world and get to know the map a lot more. But it also never felt so frustrating that I couldn't find anything. I thought it was really well done in this aspect. And there's lots of different mechanics that happen throughout the game, which I won't spoil, but there's different things where you have to upgrade your ship to get through different areas. And it just felt like a really good progression. So it never felt like you accidentally stumbled in an area that was too hard for the level that you were currently at. It was very well done in that aspect, that it gate kept things from you if you weren't quite ready to go into that area of the map yet. Overall, the gameplay was really good. The only thing I would say that kind of let the game down a little bit and showed its age a bit was the random encounters that you got with battles. At times, it was a bit insufferable, I will admit. There was a few times, especially on the ship, where I pretty much would get out of one battle and immediately get into another one. Be honest, I completely hate this game mechanic. I don't like this. I know it's very common in RPGs, but I find it really frustrating because it often feels like it is too much. And in Skies of Arcadia, especially when you're in your ship, these were happening a lot. So there was one particular part in the game where I'd get out of a battle and would immediately go into another one. So it felt like I was traveling quite far in the map and it was taking me like an hour, hour and a half to get from one side of the map to the other, just because I was having all of these random encounters, and at that point in the game they were a bit more difficult, so they were taking me longer to get through, and I was getting to a point where I was seriously worried I was going to die and have a game over because I was running out of health potions. Yeah, that was the one thing that did really frustrate me about the game, and I've heard in the GameCube version it's much, much better, so that is something to look out for in the game if you're deciding which version to get, Dreamcast or GameCube. But other than that, I thought the gameplay was overall felt really fun. There were some small puzzle elements as well when you went to different shrines. And yeah, I just thought overall the gameplay held up pretty well other than the random encounters. Now, of course, another integral part of the game is, of course, the story. Now, I will admit the story is pretty generic for a RPG. I played Grandia 2 before, like I said, and I will be honest, the games felt very, very similar in their story arcs and the tropes that they had, and just in general that saving the world is ending kind of story that a lot of RPGs have. There wasn't anything about the story that felt particularly new or groundbreaking, but that being said, I did really enjoy the story. You follow Vice, who is a pirate, but he's a good pirate. He's not one of the bad pirates, and you follow him around and you gradually find more people for your crew. Things are happening in the background, but you don't understand them yet. Then you find this mysterious girl called Fina who doesn't really tell you what it is that she's doing, what her mission is. It turns out that Fina has to find all of these moonstones and that she has to protect them. We don't really understand why yet, but basically every time you found a moonstone, you essentially had to fight off one of the Geigers, which are like these, doesn't really explain, they kind of look like robots / monsters. I'd say they kind of look a bit Shadow of Colossus-y, and they're guarding these moonstones, and you end up having to fight them. That's not really a spoiler, it happens quite early on in the game. Essentially, you then find other people after the moonstones. They want it for more nefarious reasons, and so then of course it gets more and more complicated, more and more people are after it, and you're having to really fight your way through it. Again, this might sound really familiar. I think it's a pretty big trope in RPGs. And again, you find out the world is ending. So you basically have to stop the world from ending and save everyone. Like I said, nothing groundbreaking, but I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed the structure of it, but it wasn't so structured that I got bored or felt it was overly predictable. And yeah, it just forced you to explore the world a lot more and forced you to really think about sort of the surroundings and how you can progress with your character development. It was really enjoyable. There were some different mechanics in the game and different sort of world building that I really enjoyed about the game as well. It's kind of got that fantasy vibe, and I loved the sailing through the world in your ship and the fact that all of these islands are suspended in the air. I really liked that element of as well. I thought that was a bit more different. And I loved the fact that you also got to battle on the ship, which I forgot to talk about in the gameplay mechanic, was that battling on the ship is actually quite a big part of it. It has a different fighting mechanic, although it is essentially turn-based. It's got a different mechanic to fighting with your characters. You have the ship's cannons that you can upgrade, and you have these special powers that you can use. I really liked that element of it as well. It felt like the ship was an additional character in the game, and it just added a lot more depth to the world building and the gameplay in general. So yeah, overall story, nothing groundbreaking, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it had a very nice tone of friendship and helping each other out, and very much had the humanity is good, people are good at heart kind of thing. So it was a very wholesome story in the end. The dialogue could be a bit over the top, but again, I feel like that was very much in keeping with the style of RPG that it is. Some of the tropes, not my favourite tropes ever, especially with some of the female tropes that were in there. There was one or two areas where the game aged itself. There was a particular scene with one particular side character that came across a bit, I can't say the word, but yeah, it wasn't great. And yeah, it kind of showed its age in that regard. But other than that, I felt the story was really fun and well paced too. So you won't be shocked to know that overall, I really rated this game. I loved it. I really enjoyed every moment of it. Like I said, I played it for about 70 plus hours. And for me, even just with modern games, that is a lot of time for me to sink into a game, but especially with older games. So I feel like that's testament to how good this game did play. And again, like those 70 hours really flew by. I never once felt like I was waiting for the game to end or sort of just getting through the motions with it. I really enjoyed every moment of it. There was a few frustrating parts, like I mentioned earlier in the video, but overall, music was great. I loved the characters. I really liked the story, gameplay, everything about it. I really, really enjoyed. So this would be like a 9.5 out of 10 game for me. And do I recommend it? Absolutely yes. Now, in terms of accessibility, again, like I said, this game is quite pricey. I think when I bought it, I paid about £80 for it. And yeah, that is quite a lot of money, and it's gone up even more since. There is the GameCube version, which is even more expensive, unfortunately. But if you're trying to look at the gameplay, apparently the GameCube version is much better. There are less random encounters, apparently, and it does look like there's been a few graphical improvements on it, and apparently it runs a bit quicker too. I've not played it, so I can't give my own personal views on it. That being said, I played it on the Dreamcast, and I really don't think if you decide to play it on the Dreamcast that you'll be missing anything in particular. I just think in general, it's a really good game, and it's a classic, I think. Lots of people have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I can absolutely see why. I went into it with no nostalgia, and I still really loved it. So absolutely recommend you try and play this game. You won't regret it. That really concludes the video. Do let me know down below if you've played this game and what you thought of it. Is there anything about the game that you particularly loved? And if you've not played it, will you play it after this recommendation video? Let me know. Do also let me know if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like this. I'd love to talk more in depth about random retro games that I've played because, like I said, it's really fun to talk about it and nerd out about these games. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!